All right. Thank you very much once again to our last panel. It is now my honor to introduce our 20-minute keynote speaker coming up, Chief Judy Desjarlais from the Blueberry River First Nations. Let's give her a round of applause, everybody.
Jahanatre. It's an honor to be here today at Tsuneme territory. I'm traveling today with my colleague, Councillor Sherry Dominic, and my Restoration Society, and my executive assistant, Lynn Harvey. Wave, everyone. My Restoration Society board is down there. It's a great day to be here today. I am Dunaza Cree descent. I was raised by my grandparents in Blueberry River First Nations. This was a valuable time in my life where I learned the cultural and traditional values of our people. Since taking on the leadership role, our nation has seen a big evolution of governance and the way our nation works with industry. Blueberry is a community of almost 550 members located north of Fort St. John. Our ancestors have lived off the land since time immemorial. Many people don't realize that our people were actually from the Fort St. John Beaver Band. That was until the members were divided and forced onto reserves, which now is the Blueberry. The government came and they actually scared my ancestors. It was one great big reserve where Doig and Blueberry were one nation called the Fort St. John Beaver Band. The government came and said, the army's coming, but we're gonna give you land by the river. So they split the nation up, and Blueberry River became Blueberry River, and Doig River became Doig River. The result of that was a Montney land claim in 1998 that my nation settled way back in, since I guess it was the 70s is when they were forced off that land. It was agricultural, rich in agricultural lands. And now we pass by this reserve on our way to the local city, Fort St. John, and it's nothing but grain farm, well sites, some on well sites, which obviously gets paid back into the landowner. Out of that, we now have a mineral rights claim, which is a subsurface, which Blueberry and the government didn't, recognize that they forgot to take they didn't own the subsurface rights, so Blueberry is in litigation with that right now. Blueberry and Doig are still sister nations. We share a lot of family. We share a lot of cultural and traditional values. In fact, my grandmother originated from Doig River and married my grandfather and became a Blueberry member back in the day. I want to share with you all the rights, the history of the Blueberry Treaty rights litigation. In 2015, Blueberry took BC government to court over cumulative impacts in our traditional territory. This case was started because it became impossible for our members to practice our way of life to hunt, trap, and fish, as was promised to our ancestors in the treaty. For as long as the sun shines, grass grows, and the rivers flow. Our ancestors were promised that they could live their way of life. Everyone told Blueberry it would be impossible to take the provincial government to court, and but our elders and leaders, some who are no longer with us, never gave up. The impacts to our land are almost unimaginable. 73% of the area inside of Blueberry River First Nations traditional territory is within 250 meters of an industrial disturbance, and 84% is within 500 meters. To make it worse, our community, like many other First Nations in Canada, have experienced extreme poverty as a result of colonization in the rush of the oil and gas industry, which for the most part of our nation, like other First Nations, were shut out of. The court case was a long road, but we were guided by the elders and leaders that came before us. The court's decision meant BC and Blueberry needed to find a way to permit industry to move forward in a balanced way that protected our treaty rights and restored the land that had been broken. In early 2023, Blueberry and the province of BC reached an agreement. This agreement is about implementing the court's decision to protect our treaty rights, now and for future generations. It's not a settlement or a waiver of our treaty rights. It's about protection and restoration. It means work could finally begin to address the cumulative impacts to the land. By working together, Blueberry, the province, and industry will be providing a pathway to address cumulative impacts and stability for resource development. Since the agreement was reached, there has been a lot of changes. Some have started to happen immediately, and others will take time. The agreement does not mean all industry will stop, but things will be different. There was a misconception that this agreement put a stop to production. It did not. This agreement limits new disturbance in order to allow our lands and waters to recover and be restored. This paradigm shift has required everyone to think differently. We sit at the table with the provincial government making decisions on implementation. Under this agreement, Blueberry does have shared vision, shared decision making. We have a voice and finally get to receive some of the economic benefits from the development happening in our territory. We have created a restoration society that will oversee the $200 million allocated for restoration. Half of the members are BC appointed, half are Blueberry appointed. This society will determine projects are funded. Consultation will no longer be enough. Permits now have to be approved by Blueberry along with the BC government. In the past, under the old permitting process, even if Blueberry indicated that projects would be impacting cultural, traditional, and environmental sensitive areas, we weren't listened to. In the entire history of oil and gas, permitting from the BC government, not one permit was ever rejected. Not one. That is all changed now. We are ready and willing to work with industry and government, but it needs to be at the pre-engagement stage. There have been a lot of bumps in the road because of this, because this has never been done before. But we're in a new era. Times have changed. We have some great successes in collaboration so far. Petronas and Tourmaline have come to the nation and begun to build and rebuild relationships with us. To find where our objectives align and work with our people. They are demonstrating that they understand how building strong relationships with First Nations means their companies will be more successful. To me, this is the first step to reconciliation. And quite honestly, I usually just speak, and reading notes is is hard. But anyways, you know, like with Petronas and Tourmaline, they did come to the nation right after the agreement was signed. They did collaboration. They tried to understand where things went wrong and to get the vision of the the cumulative impacts case and what it really did in the territory. And, you know, resource development has always been in the territory for many years, and the flyovers, the Google Maps 3D imaging will tell you a story how much it had impacted the traditional territory. There was a time where there was no moose, and elders were talking about how they had to travel some into Alberta, asking other nations to hunt in their area. And that's when, you know, something needed to be done, because at that time the government was just saying yes to everything. And, you know, there was some hard times through that case. I wasn't there, but the stories the elders have talked about, it was very challenging. And thank goodness that it went into our favor, because it didn't only change for my nation, but it changed for many others, because they've been crying the same cry. Our nation has been crying for a long time and tired of being, you know, pushed aside and not listened to. And, you know, it's not for us, but it's for the future generations and the legacy that our people have, our ancestors that have left behind, you know, to continue on what they have taught to us and pass it on to our kids, and to ensure that they'll be able to live off the land. And, you know, one of the purposes is they always talked, we had a dreamer, he's always talking about, back in the day, about how we will hit an era where food will be hard and we'd have to go back to our way of life. And the time is here. I was in a grocery store at Fort St. John about a week ago, and the shelves are pretty much empty. And they're calling it a transportation hiccup. Well, that happened for 2 weeks, and, you know, transportation and ministries of transportation and how that all works, there was never a problem with the food chain before, and we're seeing it now. So Tourmaline and Petronas, they worked, the president has come to the community, both of them, off of Tourmaline and Petronas. They did see us, they listened to our story, they looked at the community. We faced poor infrastructure, a water tower that, you know, didn't accommodate all the housing. There's moldy homes, renovations, and we did the calculation of what left the community, and that was billions of dollars. And, you know, somewhere along the line we were overlooked, and no real collaboration with the government or industry, and they got it. So out of that, we formed a relationship and a partnership with these two producers that are major players in our traditional territory. One of the models that we've developed one of the new models for service providers and producers who are working in our traditional territory. The nation will have a list of preferred service providers who are aligned with the values of our nation. This means that preferred service providers will have demonstrated a commitment to Blueberry's values and will invest in the living and social standards of the community. This is our way of working together with industry in a tangible way to lift our community out of poverty. Investments in our social and physical infrastructure must be tangible. Actual investment in infrastructure projects, plans to educate, train, and support Blueberry members or member-owned companies. Labor to help us build the infrastructure, build the roads, or even oversight to build the projects, and project management. In addition to the implementation agreement, the implementation agreement sets out a new approach to protection of the land and restoration of the land. An example of this, moving forward, is the creation of Blueberry River Resources and Grandmother's Greenhouse. In order to properly restore and reclaim the land, we are building a greenhouse to grow native plants that will be planted back into the territory. We are already seeing great success with selling native seeds to Petronas and now tourmaline. They've actually done a pilot project on restoration. Petronas did, and we had just started Grandmother's Greenhouse last year, and we had a few members out there gathering native seeds and storing them. And then I was given an update by our CEO for Grandmother's Greenhouse, and she said, "We're selling seeds." And I said, "Great, to who?" And she said, "Petronas and now tourmaline." So, you know, the way of the industry that's doing developments right now is different. There's different ways that they clear off the land for well sites. There's ways that they're restoring as they're doing production, and I've never seen it done like that. It's just amazing how the BC energy regulators, you know, work with the nation. We actually developed a policy procedure plan to how we can implement this new era with the BC energy regulators, and developed a plan in working in restoration and production. These two examples demonstrate the supportive partners we can ensure the investment and money stays in the community. The more that we see industry and service providers working with us, the more projects will be successful. And all of these partnerships, initiatives, and projects are also creating economic opportunities that will provide generations of our people with good, sustainable jobs. These approaches put meaning to the concept of truth and reconciliation and reflect a new era in reality. This agreement has and will continue to ensure we can be self-reliant, and that we can ensure our cultural and traditional values will come before anything else. These new changes will affect the lives of the next 7 generations. Land will be restored in order for the rivers, streams, and creeks to be clean, moose licks, and healthy environments where animals can live, can eat, and raise their young will return. Some learnings I want to leave with you today is major projects that have been successful are because they are met with First Nations whose territory they are on, and those First Nations have taken a seat at the pre-engagement tables. Engagement is incredibly important for reconciliation. By finding and building shared visions for the future, everyone benefits. Now is the time for First Nations to be out front and center. It finally feels like First Nations are in a place to not only be part of major projects, but to actually lead them, and that's so exciting. Sune chike chike. In our language, this means this place where happiness dwells. Our elders and ancestors called our homelands this because this is where they lived freely off the land. They lived together in unity. They shared, communicated, and had an understanding of one another and the land. They lived a simple life and were culturally rich with an abundance of traditional values. In short, they were happy and healthy. They took care of the land, and the land took care of them. Now, along with industry and government, we are able to restore the land back to the way it was. We are able to ensure the next 7 generations will have healthy land and resources, and will be able to live in this place where happiness dwells. Again, Ucho, son-in-law. I actually was given this to share with you. During the court case, the leaders couldn't really share what was going on inside the court case. The negotiations were very tight with the BC government. So now that it has, the agreement is finalized, we created a couple things. One of them was a commercial to give the outside world an insight of what the treaty rights litigation means, what it means now, and we also created a book that we had just talked about giving it to the public. It's a TRL member info book, and what it is a story of from start to finish of what it means what the court case meant, what it means now for the nation, and what happens next. So we have a series coming out, right, Amanda?
Thank you very, very much, Chief Judy, for that fantastic keynote. We're just going to take a quick photo, and then we'll get started with our next panel. I see Dallas walking in the room right now to moderate, so we'll get started on that in just 1 minute.